It all starts with the sudden appearance of a monster in the middle of the city. It was terrifying everyone present in the area. In deep despair, one of the girls asks why in rank a monster is there, while the other warns that it is impossible to defeat a creature like that. The monster attacks without mercy while they try to call for help in vain, marking the beginning of a new era that changed the world in the year 2050. Suddenly, someone activates a piece of equipment. These places are known as dungeons, unknown portals filled with monsters and valuable treasures scattered across the world. To fight these dangers, fearless armed female warriors emerge, willing to challenge these terrible threats. These brave women who face the dungeons are known to everyone as explorers. All of humanity closely follows these battles that now dominate society's daily routine. On their phones, people talk fearfully about the monster's strength and cheer for the explorers who fell into a trap. Despair takes over the live stream when one of the girls is captured by the terrible monster. The other girls scream in terror, seeing that the creature is about to end everything. That is when a powerful female warrior appears from above, launching a fierce attack. With an extremely precise strike, she severs the giant monster's arm. The warrior reassures the girls, saying they did a great job holding out until now, leaving everyone relieved. The mobile chat explodes with excitement, seeing that the famous Toa, the greatest rank S explorer, has finally arrived to save them. Carrying one of the girls in her arms, Toa Fuyutsuki is introduced as the strongest explorer of the modern era. I even fell in love. Looks like she is our top-tier waifu. However, the monster had not been eliminated, and it tries to attack the girls from behind. With a dark gaze, she summons her shadows and challenges the monster to show its full power. She activates her Shadow Art special ability, unleashing a devastating dark energy against the enemy. The shadow attack hits the monster head-on, tearing its body apart without giving it any chance to defend itself. Everyone watching the stream is in absolute shock over that overwhelming power, trying to understand who pulled off that attack. Even the rescued explorers are left speechless, witnessing the unbelievable strength of that technique. However, although only women can awaken these powers, a major exception appears wrapped in black flames. In this world dominated by female explorers, people are in total disbelief seeing that a boy can also use magic. This young man is named Haruhito Ayukawa, and this is the journey of the only man determined to reach the top of the dungeons. Oh man, I am really starting to like where this is going. To understand how everything got to this point, let us turn back time a bit. Our prota was walking through a completely destroyed city, lamenting his difficult situation. Out of strength, he ends up collapsing on the alley floor while desperately thinking that he does not want to perish. Fallen and exhausted, he repeats to himself that it is not yet his time to go. Suddenly, a man yells angrily, calling for Ayukawa and demanding that he wake up immediately from his nap. Haruhito opens his eyes startled, completely confused by the situation. He realizes he was just napping in class and that all of it was nothing more than a vivid dream. Still dazed, he tries to understand the meaning of that terrible nightmare where he felt like he was about to pass away. Around him, his classmates whisper quietly, saying that a failure like him should not even be in an explorer academy. The teacher takes advantage of the distraction to challenge him, asking what the highest rank for an explorer is and who the strongest female warrior in the world is. Still a bit sleepy, Haruhito takes a timid guess and answers that the maximum rank would be SSS. The students around turn in shock and disbelief at the boy's absurd answer. The entire classroom starts laughing loudly at him, calling him a total fool for inventing a rank that does not even exist. A classmate mocks him, saying that the cap is rank S, and makes fun of Haruhito for not even knowing the name of the famous Toa Fuyutsuki. The same boy wonders out loud if there is really any reason for Haruhito to keep studying at that school. Haruhito lowers his head in disappointment, regretting having ruined everything once again in front of everyone. The teacher takes the opportunity to warn the class not to be like that loser, since no woman will want to support an unsmart man. While Haruhito predicts he will be the butt of jokes for a long time, the teacher explains that the era when men led society is way in the past. The screen reveals that Haruhito is just a rank 1 explorer, which explains the total lack of respect he gets in class next. The teacher announces that an explorer student named Natsuki Natsukawa will join them in their next cooking class. The guys in the classroom get extremely hyped up about the arrival of the popular Natsuki. While one student plans to catch the eye of the rich and pretty girl, Haruhito watches it all, finding that flattery ridiculous. He wonders why all the men there can only think about kissing up to the women all the time. The facade of the renowned Explorer Academy looms large, revealing the training ground for future female warriors. In this school, girls are trained to fight monsters, while men serve merely as assistants and waiters for them. In this world dominated by powerful women capable of awakening as explorers, men are educated solely to become homemakers. Haruhito tries to give it his all in cooking class and proudly presents the special dish he prepared with great care. While the other boys say they would never eat that and make fun of Haruhito, the popular Natsuki approaches out of curiosity upon seeing the food. Natsuki tries the dish and is amazed, saying she would love to marry someone who cooked like that every day, giving the guy high praise. Impressed by his talent, Natsuki points excited and lets him know she has engraved Haruhito's name in her mind for good. The other boys are green with envy, realizing Haruhito managed to get ahead and grab the attention of the most popular girl. Later, Haruhito isolates himself in the school courtyard to reflect a bit on his life. He laments the fact that the only future for a man is to be a homemaker, since they will never be capable of becoming explorers. Looking at his phone, he sees the failing result on his aptitude test, remembering that he never knew when to give up on his childhood dream. His thoughts are interrupted when a group of envious classmates approaches to pick on him. They mock him for eating lunch alone and ask if he was practicing how to suck up to Natsuki once again. Haruhito tries to defend himself by saying he was not kissing up to anyone, but one of the bullies confronts him aggressively. The bully ruins the peaceful mood and warns him with contempt that Haruhito is getting way too cocky for his own good. Meanwhile, on the lower floor of the training dungeon, a few senior girls gather to start their activities. They look at the commotion from afar and comment on the isolated guy who is notorious for being quite arrogant with others. One of the girls grabs Haruhito aggressively by the collar, startling the guy with the sudden move. She snatches his phone and asks if he has a problem, reminding him that a man should never challenge a woman. Upon discovering on his phone that Haruhito wants to take the Explorer exam, the bullies laugh out loud and plan to teach him a lesson. The group of girls mocks him mercilessly, reinforcing that only women have the right to awaken as legitimate explorers. Haruhito clenches his fists in anger while hearing that the absolute most a man can aim for is to be a simple homemaker. He ends up being knocked cold to the ground, while everyone around laughs at his humiliation and his impossible dream. Man, if women were stepping on me like that, I would be the one coming out winning. One of the bullies says with utter contempt that she hates people who do not know their place, telling the boy to stop daydreaming since he is just a man. The girl steps on Haruhito's head, while the male bully demands that he apologize for having the nerve to dream of being an explorer. Down and bruised, Haruhito wonders if he should just swallow his pride and beg for forgiveness, or take a different stand. Outraged by the injustice, he reacts with all his strength and lands a direct punch right on the bully's face, leaving everyone stunned. The other students get furious at the guy's reaction and decide to gang up on him to discipline the bold kid. As he takes a beating on the ground and sees his own blood spill, Haruhito wonders if it is worth suffering so much for a dream that will never come true. One of the senior girls pulls him up by his hair and tells him he is crazy for wanting to be an explorer, since the gap in power between men and women is massive. He starts thinking she might be right and questions why he is enduring so much humiliation just to follow this path. At that moment, he recalls a sunny day at the beach during his childhood. Back then, a little girl wearing a straw hat declared with determination that she would become a great explorer to prove her worth. Excited by the revelation, young Haruhito promised that he would also become an explorer to keep her company, since they were great friends. Surprised by his answer, the little girl smiled bashfully and accepted his challenge with pure joy. To seal the deal, they bumped fists, and young Haruhito declared that it was a solemn promise between them. Back in the present, his face covered in blood, Haruhito wonders if he is a complete fool for still holding on to that promise. Determined not to break his word, he gathers his remaining strength and lands another clean hit on his attackers. With a defiant look, he says that insignificant people like them would never understand the true value of a promise. The attackers fly into a complete rage at the boy's insolence, their eyes glowing with pure hatred. They surround Haruhito and warn him they will not go easy, threatening to give him a brutal beating over his disrespectful words. As they corner him in the dark hallway, they say that fatal accidents happen all the time inside dungeons, demanding he beg on his knees, even beat up and outnumbered. Haruhito just smirks mockingly and tells them all to go straight to hell. Suddenly, a massive three-headed Cerberus bursts through the ceiling, destroying everything with intense flames and terrifying everyone. The students panic, realizing that a horrific creature has inexplicably invaded the training area. The monster roars furiously as the students run in terror, shouting for the explorers to do something to save them from the danger. While everyone runs for their lives, Haruhito observes the situation with calm and focus. He locks his eyes on the Cerberus, recognizing it as a dreadful rank, a beast that is extremely dangerous. All of a sudden, time seems to stop, and a mysterious voice echoes, congratulating Haruhito for finally becoming an explorer. Confused, he wonders whose enigmatic voice that is, confirming that he has now awakened his true powers. The voice declares that Haruhito is now a triple S rank explorer, bringing a sense of nostalgia and comfort to the young man. Right before the disbelieving eyes of the fallen bullies, Haruhito stands tall and imposing after taking down the dreadful creature all by himself. The students around are in complete shock, stammering that it is impossible for a man to possess magical power. Terrified by Haruhito's strength, one of the guys points and screams for the explorers to finish the boy off right away. The bully yells frantically that if they silence him now, they can tell everyone that they were the ones who defeated the monster. Haruhito watches that pathetic scene with a look of deep disdain, unable to comprehend why they are acting that way. The bully loses his mind even further, screaming that it is an unacceptable absurdity for a man to be stronger than a woman. He keeps insisting that this is wrong and that men should never have that much power, while the girls remain silent. Feeling his body burn with energy, Haruhito realizes his memories have awakened, and he tells everyone to step back from him. He releases a powerful wave of dark magic energy that knocks the bullies and explorers backward, scaring everyone. The main bully begins to sweat in terror, realizing that the boy he used to humiliate now holds an absurd amount of power. Blinded by wounded pride, the bully rushes to punch him, screaming that Haruhito is still beneath him. Showing zero fear of the attack, Haruhito simply raises his hand and prepares a simple counter. He points his fingers toward the opponent who is rushing desperately at him with extreme lightness and precision. Haruhito taps the bully's forehead with the tips of his fingers. An overwhelming blast of dark red magic is unleashed instantly, sending the bully flying far away. Blowing on his fingers, Haruhito apologizes coldly, stating he does not care in the slightest about who is above or below in society. The system confirms that the threats have been silenced, and a voice asks if Haruhito plans to return to the academy. He answers no, while casually obliterating a giant shadow creature along his path with effortless ease. Feeling a headache, he tries to wrap his head around the strange memories that surfaced, deciding he needs to investigate them closely. He realizes he now holds two lives in his mind, his memories of a weak man and those of his past life as a powerful explorer. 3 days later, instead of returning to class, he camps out in the forest until he reaches a very specific location. He arrives at the Okuchichibu barrier, a deserted dungeon that was previously cleared, ready to find out if his past memories are real. Walking toward a secret door, he repeats the ancient words about seeking power in order to unlock it. Stepping into the mysterious location and seeing a purple light glowing in the back, he is surprised and wonders if it is real. Right in front of him, he finds exactly what he was looking for, a legendary weapon resting on a sacred altar. He wields the Onakiri Yasutsuna, a national treasure class mystical sword that glows intensely in his hands. Haruhito reflects that his hero memories are real, with the only difference being that in this current world, only women awaken powers. Suddenly, his system alerts him to a distress signal coming from inside that supposedly empty dungeon. Checking the Explorer database, the system identifies that it is a rank B female explorer affiliated with the academy. Haruhito is in total shock when the system panel warns him that young Natsuki Natsukawa is about to pass away at 17 years old. The report details that her body would be found headless right there, making Haruhito panic over his classmate's tragic fate. He discovers she died protecting her team in the past, and he questions whether he should mess with history, since he has no real reason to save her. However, he remembers Natsuki's gentle smile when she promised she would never forget Haruhito's name. Going against logic, Haruhito firmly grips the hilt of his new sword and decides to act like a true explorer in that moment. He also recalls his childhood promise on the beach with his dear friend, solidifying his resolve. He knows he needs to reach the top rank of explorers and become number one to fulfill that pact. Eyes glowing with determination, he decides there is only one thing to do and rushes in for the rescue. Meanwhile, in another part of the dungeon, Natsuki is desperately fighting a giant black-armored warrior. Completely exhausted and injured, she falls to the ground, praying that her teammates manage to safely escape that nightmare. The armored knight slowly advances toward her, exuding a terrible purple aura of death. Natsuki realizes in desperation that her physical and magical attacks have no effect on the creature, and all her escape routes are blocked. The monster swings a violent sword slash that hits Natsuki square on, leaving no room for defense. She is slammed against the wall from the impact of the blow, coughing up blood and groaning in intense pain. With broken bones and no strength left to get up, Natsuki curls against the wall, accepting that this will be her end. She laments that she will not be able to do the things she wanted in life and hopes her friends do not get trapped there. She cries, thinking about the simple dreams she had, like eating delicious food and finding a caring husband in the future. The heavy footsteps of the armored monster echo through the room as it slowly approaches to deliver the finishing blow. Natsuki looks at the terrifying face beneath the creature's helm and thinks fondly that Haruhito's food was really delicious. Just as the monster raises its sword to take her life, she closes her eyes, desperately wishing not to perish there out of nowhere. Haruhito appears, blocking the creature's deadly strike with his legendary sword, activating his Shadow Embrace technique. Saved at the very last second, Natsuki opens her eyes and asks in shock who that mysterious young man in front of her is. Natsuki looks stunned at the mysterious man in a suit, realizing that he is an explorer. The armored creatures charge forward, roaring in rage, but Haruhito readies his sword, Onikiri Yasutsuna. With eyes glowing amidst the dark shadows, he begins to draw his weapon, channeling intense energy. Haruhito moves at high speed and delivers precise slashes, destroying the creatures one by one. After the overwhelming onslaught, he lets go of his sword's hilt with extreme lightness. One of the monsters still tries to attack him from behind, but Haruhito dodges effortlessly while starting to remember something. He recalls how to tap into his true power and activates his shadow art. The armored enemy is completely torn apart by the shadow energy detonating around it. Haruhito calmly sheathes his sword as the creature's head is severed, complaining about the noise. The system confirms that the monster's subjugation was completed successfully, and a stone appears on the ground. Haruhito picks up the glowing blue crystal and wonders if that is truly a magic stone. Natsuki watches in disbelief that he defeated the monster alone, asking who he really is. Haruhito looks at her and says gently that she held out really well. Calling her by her last name, Natsuki's eyes widen in extreme surprise as she instantly recognizes that familiar voice. She tries to ask if he is Haruhito, but he brushed it off, reminding her that men cannot be explorers. He bids farewell, wishing her a long life, and begins to fade away while she begs him to wait. Natsuki reaches her hand out in vain toward the dark ashes left on the dungeon floor. She pulls her hand back thoughtfully, questioning once again the true identity of that guy. Suddenly, she begins to blush intensely and lets out an embarrassed squeal, realizing what just happened, as he walks with footsteps wrapped in purple flames. Haruhito wonders what he should do next. He looks at his phone, which shows he failed the aptitude test, pondering his next move. 5 days later, an energetic reporter announces the start of the annual Explorer exam in front of a massive crowd. Haruhito is a bit surprised when approached by the journalist, but agrees to talk to her. The reporter thanks him and asks if he just came to watch, but Haruhito reveals he came to take the test. The journalist finds his response funny and asks if he managed to pass the preliminary magic power evaluation. He admits he failed, but explains he heard he could still participate if he turns in dungeon materials. The reporter laughs out loud, thinking he is delusional, but offers to walk him over to the reception desk. Haruhito just gives a friendly smile and agrees to walk to the counter with her at the front desk. The receptionist asks if he really wants to take the exam, and Haruhito confirms he does. The receptionist sighs in disappointment at seeing another guy try, asking him to hand over the materials. The reporter continues mocking him behind his back, thinking he just bought some cheap stone at an auction. Haruhito places the giant blue gem on the desk, noting it must belong to a rank A monster or higher. The reporter almost chokes, holding back laughter, thinking that defeating a rank A would make him a rank S explorer. The receptionist suddenly yells in rage, telling the journalist to shut her mouth and stay quiet immediately. The journalist is left completely clueless by the receptionist's heated reaction. Examining the stone with a magnifying glass, the employee realizes its shine and energy are of a far superior level. She explains she will need to send the crystal to the investigation room, and Haruhito grants permission without an issue. The reporter is speechless seeing the crystal accepted, as she thought men only brought useless rocks. She quickly recovers from the shock, remembering he will still have to go through the practical exam. Haruhito walks into the testing room and faces a massive blue crystal used to measure magic power. Another applicant places her hand on the crystal, channeling greenish energy to get her reading. The device registers 87 points, and the evaluator confirms she passed with a rank C certification. The reporter celebrates quietly, certain that men have no mana and that he will fail miserably now. She explains he needs 50 points, while Haruhito thinks it will be tough to hold back his power. The moment he touches the crystal, an absurd amount of energy explodes overwhelmingly inside the room. Both the employee and the journalist are completely terrified by what they are witnessing. The digital display shows that the device's limit was surpassed, registering an impossible rank S measurement. The receptionist freaks out seeing the result, and everyone around begins shouting that the machine must be broken. The journalist freezes in absolute silence, trying to convince herself it was just a technical glitch. She breaks into a cold sweat, desperately praying they retest him to prove it was just a malfunction. Haruhito politely asks if he can try measuring his power one more time, and the trembling receptionist agrees. The reporter recalls the boy's past failures and thinks to herself that it would be impossible for him to pull that off upon testing again. The measuring crystal cannot handle the pressure and completely shatters right in front of the boy. The journalist looks up totally stunned, seeing the crystal fragments hovering in midair. Her eye reflects the intense glow of energy that just destroyed the testing device in an overwhelming fashion. Haruhito calmly extends his hand and asks if he finally has permission to join the main exam. He recalls his childhood at the beach, when he told his friend that he also wanted to become a great explorer. The boy smiles and says that would be a very important promise kept strictly between the two of them. The little girl in the straw hat listens to his words in silence with a serene expression. She reveals that she always has the exact same dream when she sleeps, missing that summer that will never return. In her luxurious bedroom, she wakes up lost in thought on her massive bed, with her maid by her side. Meanwhile, in the packed stadium, the host thanks the crowd for their patience and announces that the exam will be straightforward. She reveals that the test will be a free-for-all, and anyone who leaves the arena or passes out will be disqualified on the spot. The Battle Royale will bring together all the female candidates who manage to qualify for the main stage at once. The announcer catches everyone's attention by warning that there is a major piece of breaking news regarding the test. She asks everyone to look at the big screen, calling the situation the first major incident since the creation of the system. The audience is in total shock when the presenter reveals that there is a male candidate taking the exam. The crowd begins to boo the young man heavily, and the host finds all that negative reaction amusing. She warns with a smile that the presence of a weak male will not change the competition rules for anyone there. One of the contestants remarks from afar that this whole situation is absolute madness. Itsuki Satsuki points in Haruhito's direction, quite excited to confirm that he really is a guy. Yui Yuika agrees with a smile while knitting, commenting sarcastically that she finds the boy quite cute, hiding behind a curtain. Clara Kurosaki chuckles quietly, calling him a delusional idiot for being in that place. They wonder if the legendary Rank 1 explorer agrees with the boy's participation. Arya alerts her superior Towa that a man, the very thing she despises the most, is participating in the evaluation. With a cold and piercing gaze fitting for Rank 1, Towa Fuyutsuki simply asks what the boy's name is. The secretary prepares to state his name, but Towa interrupts her, saying she does not need to memorize a man's name. Itsuki finds it hilarious, commenting that Towa continues to hate men just as much as she always did in the past. Yui mentions she thinks boys are cute, especially when they are making a useless effort to win. Clara also states she hates men because they are weak and always walk around in pathetic groups. Towa thinks it is absurd he made it this far and orders Arya to do a deep dive into the boy's past. On the battlefield, the announcer finally shouts that the main exam is about to begin. As soon as the start signal is given, a massive dark energy, shaped like branches, spreads throughout the arena. The contestants around back away in terror, feeling the pressure of that unexpected power. Even Towa, watching from a distance, shows a slight hint of surprise seeing such a display of force. Haruhito calmly prepares himself and announces that it is his turn, formally activating his shadow art. With a confident smile, he remembers the promise he made to his dear childhood friend. The competitors are completely bewildered, unable to understand where that mysterious dark fog came from. They start whispering fearfully as they see the guy in a suit walk calmly, surrounded by purple magic. Extremely intrigued by the boy, Towa decides to ask Arya once again what his name is. Arya looks at her data tablet and answers immediately that the guy's name is Haruhito Ayukawa. Towa falls into absolute silence, thinking to herself that she does not like that familiar name at all. In anger, she points forward and says she finds it truly disgusting to have a man's presence there. The presenter hears something in her earpiece and nervously announces that a new rule has just been added. She reveals that, by direct order of Rank 1, whoever manages to defeat the male candidate will pass the exam on the spot. The girls start pulling out their weapons in excitement, realizing that Towa herself is calling the shots. They flash greedy smiles, thinking they only need to beat one weak guy to earn an easy pass. Their eyes go completely blind with greed over this unique chance, looking like explorers facing a jackpot. They charge together against Haruhito, screaming for him to give up and blaming him for trying to show off as just a man. However, they forget that right behind every great treasure, there is always a dreadful monster lurking with a confident smirk. Haruhito comments that it does not matter whether you are a man or a woman when it comes to combat. He activates his complete shadow art, releasing an overwhelming blast of energy that knocks everyone back at once. The candidates are launched far away with extreme ease, unable to fathom how that is even possible. The presenter is left entirely speechless, observing the scene in absolute silence. She drops her microphone out of shock, but a strand of dark shadow quickly rises to catch it in midair. With precise movements, Haruhito snatches the falling mic before it even touches the ground. Speaking directly into the mic, he asks with a smile if they still intend to go through with this exam. He stands imposing in the center of the arena, while all his opponents around lie fallen and defeated. Watching from a front row seat, Itsuki Satsuki gets extremely hyped by the boy's display of power. Yui Yuika finds the situation surprising, wondering if that mysterious shadow might be some sort of divine artifact. Clara cries in despair, repeating multiple times that it is totally impossible for a man to be this strong. Arya turns anxiously to her superior, trying to comment on what she just witnessed in the arena. Toa stands up, taken aback, eyes wide open as she locks her entire focus onto the figure of the young man in the suit. An image of water and memories from the past seem to surface in her mind while she observes Haruhito. Details from that sunny day at the beach begin to return clearly to the powerful explorer's memory. She remembers vividly the smile and the gesture of determination from the little boy she met in her childhood. She recalls the boy she met just once at her family's mansion, whose face had already become blurry in her dreams. The scene replays in her mind over and over, bringing back feelings that had long been dormant. All that old longing for that unforgettable summer resurfaces intensely inside Toa's heart. With a face completely red and a racing heart, she finally realizes that he is Haruhito. Arya looks at her confused, calling out to ask what is happening to her lady. Toa tries to hide her shy reaction, while her face stays beet red and embarrassed. Arya is in total shock and makes a hilarious funny face upon noticing her superior's unusual behavior. The secretary thinks she has never seen Toa act so delicate and wonders if she is in love. Suddenly, Itsuki Satsuki says goodbye, announcing she is going down to the arena to fight the boy. Arya still tries to stop her from interfering, but Toa gives a signal, telling her to let her go without issue. Satsuki lets out an excited laugh and compliments Toa's call while channeling energy into her ring. She leaps toward the battlefield, wrapped in powerful blue electrical discharges, ready for action. The other participants run frantically out of the arena to avoid getting caught in the middle of that chaos. Haruhito's system warns him about the rapid approach of a powerful opponent coming straight for him. Satsuki throws a lightning-fast punch packed with electricity, but Haruhito manages to dodge at the last second. She is surprised that he blocked the attack and wonders if he used some kind of teleportation skill. Satsuki introduces herself as a Rank S explorer and asks excitedly if he is really just an ordinary man. Haruhito gives an ironic smile and replies by asking if he looks like a woman to her. She loves the bold response and says she does not hate men who possess a strong resolve like his. Satsuki charges forward, throwing fast strikes, wrapped in lightning, reminding him of the competition's new rule. She shouts that if he manages to defeat her, he will be automatically approved in the official exam. The presenter screams in disbelief that an elite warrior broke into the test so suddenly the two trade strikes at high speed, and it becomes clear he can fight her on equal footing. She taunts him, saying he cannot even lay a finger on her, provoking her opponent mid-fight. Haruhito finds the situation strange, as he can perfectly see all her movements and dodge them. He knows he cannot drop his guard and swiftly steps forward with an open palm toward her face. With extreme agility and precision, Haruhito manages to firmly grab his opponent's head. Satsuki's eyes widen, left with no reaction as she realizes she was dominated by a supposedly average opponent. He slams her into the arena floor with brutal force, making the entire crowd gasp in shock. Haruhito lets go of her and remarks thoughtfully that he found the girl's body surprisingly light for a warrior. Down on the arena floor, Satsuki lets out only a faint groan of pain while trying to recover from the blow. She leans against her giant teddy bear, complaining about the impact while trying to figure out what happened there. Yui Yuika pats her friend's head sarcastically, commenting that it seems she is in big trouble. Clara Kurosaki shows up laughing, saying it is fun to see such an outgoing girl get beaten like that. Yui Yuika smiles, holding her small plush bunny, reminding them that the boss actually gave them permission to act. In the blink of an eye, the small plush bunny begins to grow in a bizarre and violent fashion right in the arena. With the giant, muscular bunny in the background, Yui asks mockingly if he is prepared to take on all three of them together. Haruhito's system completes its scan, revealing that all those opponents are users of divine artifacts. Haruhito finds it nostalgic to see them using these items and realizes that explorers of this era can still use skills. He recalls that in his previous world, divine artifacts served merely as crutches for those who could not use magic. He analyzes his own clenched fist, remembering the feeling of grabbing and throwing a rank 5 warrior. He reinforces the thought that she felt incredibly light during the fight. With a serious look, the young man thinks that this fight will be a great chance to test his true power. He recalls past memories, where men were humiliated and physically assaulted with zero chance to defend themselves. He wonders in his mind how far he will be able to go using all his power in that place. His main goal now is to discover his limits within this society, completely ruled by women. The three opponents smirk with smug taunts, totally confident that they will come out victorious from the clash. Satsuki rushes in, throwing an electricity-infused punch, but Haruhito blocks the strike using just his forearm. The young man's eye glows intensely in a shade of blue as he coldly reads his opponent's movements. Satsuki backs off for a moment with a tense smile on her face, surprised by his physical durability. She senses a massive, crushing pressure rising from the boy and wonders what kind of absurd force that is. Satsuki's eyes widen in fear as she realizes her arm has been wrapped by a strand of dark shadow. Haruhito flings her into the air with effortless ease, but the giant plush bunny charges to strike him from behind. The immense white creature unleashes a crushing blow toward the young man without showing an ounce of mercy. Unfazed, Haruhito channels his energy and manifests a giant glowing blue fist right behind him. The two attacks collide violently in midair, triggering a massive blast of light and energy across the entire arena. The energy fist completely crushes the giant creature, making it vanish amidst the overwhelming impact. Yui Yuka drops from the sky, preparing to hurl her giant teddy bear at the young man, who calmly steps aside. Even as she falls, she maintains a confident smile on her face while handling the massive toy effortlessly. The gigantic bear hits the ground hard, but Haruhito manages to block the direct impact by crossing his arms. Yui looks visibly shocked and uneasy, realizing her heaviest attack had zero effect on him. With a subtle smirk and glowing eyes, he holds up the weight of the massive toy without exerting any effort. Desperate over the easy block, she screams for Clara to step in and attack the opponent immediately. Haruhito catches a small dark object coming his way out of the corner of his eye and prepares to dodge. Clara complains, telling her not to rush her while she readies her own skill against the young man. She fires a swift, razor-sharp blast called Violet Blade Wave directly at Haruhito. With extreme agility, Haruhito dodges the slicing attack with a simple move while cracking a joke. The attack grazes past him and explodes in the background, while he uses the impact force to shove his opponent away. Clara lets out a gasp of surprise. Seeing her surprise strike fail miserably against the boy, Yui Yuika smiles very nervously, unable to process the ridiculous reaction speed he possesses. The three gather again in the arena, huffing and exhausted after trying everything and failing to stop him. Haruhito remarks to himself with total composure that he really has become extremely strong. He turns to his opponents and says that the rank S explorers can start fighting him for real now. Satsuki flashes a wild side grin, while the other two begin to get visibly annoyed. With their pride wounded by his words, the three yell furiously that they will make him cry in that arena. It all starts in the main combat arena, where a mysterious energy spreads through the air. The female spectators in the stands are shocked, asking what that is and if it is even real. They doubt a man could be that strong, assuming the whole thing must be staged. Clara Kurosaki remains silent, thinking this can only be some sort of trick. She can barely bring herself to believe he is capable of so much, despite being just a man. At that moment, memories surface of people laughing at him simply because he is a guy. The flashbacks show that men were mistreated and looked down upon by women. Clara gets startled when Haruhito asks if his gender really matters at a time like this. Haruhito says that what truly matters for an explorer is something completely different. The female crowd gets annoyed by his words and yells for him to get out of there once and for all. Suddenly, the men present in the stands begin to laugh and cheer at the top of their lungs. They shout enthusiastically, encouraging the young man to keep fighting and defeat his opponent. The men celebrate that he is finally overpowering a rank S explorer. They taunt Clara, saying the female explorer who thought she was superior is now crying. The male audience keeps laughing, shouting for him to finish off those women already. The crowd of men starts chanting in unison for him to defeat them all without mercy. Yui Yuika gets annoyed by the shouting, commenting that this is exactly why she hates men. Clara begins to tremble in terror just from hearing the voices of so many men at the same time. She holds her head in panic, crying and saying she hates seeing so many men gathered together. Itsuki Satsuki gets really concerned, wondering if her phobia of men was truly incurable. Satsuki tries to calm her down, telling her to pull herself together since she is much stronger than him. Despite the encouragement, Clara spirals into despair upon realizing just how powerful Haruhito is. She remembers her childhood trauma and fears that all other men are aggressive. The girl cries hysterically as she relives the terrible fear she harbors toward male figures. Cowering on the arena floor, Clara gives in to panic, sobbing non-stop out of sheer fright. The men in the crowd mock her crying, commenting that the rumors on the internet were true. They laugh out loud at her male phobia, making very insensitive jokes about the situation. Haruhito hears all that mocking coming from the male crowd and starts to get deeply bothered. The men keep yelling for Haruhito to show their wrath and punish the girls with an extremely serious and cold look. Haruhito mutters that they are making way too much noise. The men who were shouting in the stands abruptly stop, left completely confused. Haruhito releases a crushing blue aura, stating that all that noise is distracting him. His immense magical pressure slams into the crowd, causing them to suffocate and feel immense pain. Several men in the audience pass out instantly, unable to handle the overwhelming power. Yui Yuika sighs in relief, asking fearfully what the guy is trying to pull off there. Clara looks at him with tears still in her eyes, unable to grasp why he acted that way. Haruhito approaches and says she does not deserve to be ridiculed by men like them. He praises her violet blade wave attack, acknowledging that such a technique requires a lot of training. Glancing at the fallen men, Haruhito asserts that an explorer's gender does not matter. With a confident smile, he states that what truly defines an explorer is their strength. He lets them know the noise is finally over and that they can now resume the test. Satsuki lets out a smile of relief, and Yui silently agrees with the young man's gesture. Clara turns bright red, asking herself in fear what kind of person he really is. Haruhito approaches her with a smile, revealing that he is a triple S rank explorer. Out of nowhere, a giant sword drops from the sky, slamming violently into the arena floor. Satsuki, Clara, and Yui look at that massive weapon, completely frozen in shock. A mysterious young woman holding the great sword appears and declares that the fight is already over. The young woman walks up to Haruhito and asks with a stern look if he is Haruhito Ayukawa. She tightens her grip on her sword's hilt, confirming she already knows his answer. Towafu Yutsuki turns deeply flushed, asking with shimmering eyes if he does not remember her. Haruhito is confused by the question, stating he has no idea what he is supposed to remember. Upon hearing that, Towafu Yutsuki's gaze instantly shifts into a cold, stern expression. She draws her weapon, saying she understands the situation. Preparing to battle the young man, Towa evaluates his magical power, concluding that with that kind of strength, he can only be rank 1. Haruhito gives a faint smile and mutters to himself that he also has an important promise to keep. He recalls his past at the beach and an old promise he made to someone dear. The young man readies himself for battle, calling Towa out to be his opponent in that test. Realizing that he actually remembered her, Towa becomes visibly blushed and emotional. The childhood memory of the two at the beach resurfaces as if they were still those kids. Suddenly, a gigantic orb of dark purple energy begins to form in the sky above the arena. Towa and Haruhito look up startled, wondering what on earth is happening up there. The system issues an urgent hazard warning as a terrifying monstrous claw emerges. A massive invasion of dungeon monsters is confirmed by the system through the portal. The purple portal in the sky crackles with massive electricity and begins to tear open violently. Towa looks at the sky in complete outrage, unable to grasp how this is taking place. A gigantic skeletal hand begins to descend slowly from the rift that opened in the sky. The massive bone hand channels a bright, multicolored energy right in its palm. The spectators look up in horror, asking if that blinding light could be the sun. The skeletal creature fires a colossal, devastating beam of energy straight into the arena. Satsuki, Clara, and Yui stare at that overwhelming attack in total panic, unable to believe the danger. Towa complains, annoyed by the situation, and readies herself to deflect the strike with her great sword. She charges forward with everything she has, swinging a powerful slash to try and block the incoming attack. Towa decides to lift the restrictions of the Avalon Treaty to unleash her true power. Purple smoke begins to rise from the arena floor as the attack's energy dissipates. Towa's eyes widen in extreme surprise at what takes place right after Haruhito appears behind her, enveloped in black energy, and she wonders who he truly is. The system sends an urgent alert, detecting the appearance of a triple S rank monster. Haruhito extends his hand to cast his magic, and the system warns that laws have been bypassed. The system begins a partial release of the young man's energy. According to the treaty rules, Haruhito starts gathering his black magic in his hands, ready to unleash a counterattack. He feels the memories of his past life screaming in his mind as he channels the blast. Haruhito points the dark energy sphere skyward and activates his shadow art technique. The young man fully releases his magic power, a fierce and deadly glow flashing in his eyes. A massive beam of purple energy is shot toward the heavens against the monster portal. Haruhito's attack hits the portal head-on, colliding directly with the massive skeletal hand. A magnificent explosion of colorful lights and smoke engulfs the entire sky above the arena. The young man realizes that this was the divine monster that destroyed the world in his original timeline. He stares at the sky tense, remembering that giant bone finger that brought about so much ruin. Haruhito clearly remembers those terrifying, unforgettable rainbow-colored eyes. The young man recalls the dreadful underworld King Ada, the terrible instigator of all that destruction. He grows anxious, asking himself if that devastating monster will also make an appearance in this world. The entire arena falls quiet beneath the purple smoke while the girls try to process what just happened. In the stands, Natsuki and her friend are stunned, assuming it was all just special effects. Moments later, their expressions shift as they realize the situation is real and life-threatening. Haruhito reflects with concern that if the world follows the same path as the past, the worst will happen. He visualizes the opening of dangerous sites that mark the emergence of a master entity. The system confirms that the chained dungeon gates are on the verge of breaking open. The young man panics as he realizes that the great future collapse is starting right now. He screams frantically for the crowd not to stand around and to flee immediately to the Ayas shelter right after. He despairs upon remembering that the Ayas shelters have not even been built yet. Towa Fuyutsuki is surprised he knows about the Ayas shelters, but decides to save that question for later. In the arena, Haruhito keeps yelling desperately for people to leave with their families. The young man urgently warns everyone that they have under 10 minutes before disaster truly strikes. He alerts the crowd that the gates are about to burst, unleashing the monster invasion. Despite the tense warning, some people in the stands still act casually, thinking about calling home. A few men get annoyed by the alert, saying they will not listen to orders from a loser like him. Haruhito gets furious at their stubbornness, while a voice in his mind laments seeing him push himself so hard. The voice remarks that he always ends up getting hurt for others, making the young man remember Prometheus. The men completely ignore the danger warnings and keep shouting for the boy to get lost. Suddenly, Tawa's powerful voice echoes across the stadium, commanding the spectators to shut their mouths. With an extremely firm and commanding look, she shows she has taken full control of the situation. Haruhito looks at her quite surprised, wondering if she is actually being serious. Tawa walks over with steady steps toward the young man and calls him over to talk. She cuts straight to the point, asking where he heard about the secret Ayas shelters. Tawa mentions that it is top-secret information belonging to her family, but chooses to let that slide for now. She demands a brief explanation of what is going to happen and the best strategy to stop the threat. Haruhito realizes he has no physical proof to convince her since no one studies invasions yet. Towa trusts him without hesitation and calls her secretary, Arya Akin, who steps forward immediately. The young leader orders Arya to get a direct line to the governor as well as the prime minister. Towa calls the governor, demands a state of emergency in the city, and takes full responsibility. She calls the prime minister, orders the defense forces mobilized, and says she has no patience for slowness. She also commands the opening of all Ayas shelters, ignoring the fact that they are still prototypes. Haruhito is stunned by her authority, while the voice in his head confirms that Towa genuinely believed him. Towa puts her phone away with a calm smile and asks the young man what the next step should be. Meanwhile, out on the city streets, citizens begin receiving emergency alerts on their phones. In an alleyway, fragments of energy rise from the ground, and a monstrous voice laughs, saying there is plenty of prey here. A winged demon comments excitedly to his brother that they received permission from the king to eliminate anyone they want. The older demon asks for the plan, and the younger one says they will capture the rare women and take out the rest. Satsuki, Clara, and Yui approach nervously, asking their leader what is actually going on. Tawa points back at Haruhito, stating that is exactly what she is asking him right now. She warns the young man that the evacuation is about to begin and insists he tell them what comes next. Haruhito answers directly that the most critical thing right now is to get everyone into the shelters. Tawa steps onto a platform and loudly commands all citizens to begin an immediate evacuation. The entire crowd responds by shouting in unison, leaving Haruhito impressed by her influence. In an orderly fashion, the crowd begins clearing out of the combat stadium's bleachers. Still baffled by how quickly she made her call, Haruhito looks at the leader and asks the reason behind it all. He points to himself and asks directly why she chose to believe his words. Towa simply gives a sly smile with blushing cheeks. Keeping a precious secret to herself, she places her index finger over her lips charmingly and playfully says she will not tell. At that moment, Arya steps forward with a very stern and worried expression. The secretary apologizes for stepping in, but warns that she needs to give a piece of crucial advice. Maintaining her usual composure and elegance, Towa calmly orders her to speak. Arya admits the young man protected them from the previous attack, but points out that things are not that simple. Towa glares at her with an intimidating look, asking what she means by that. Arya loses her patience and yells that she simply cannot believe a single word he says. She starts saying that a surface monster invasion is impossible, but is cut off by a loud boom. A giant explosion occurs in the distance within the city, startling Arya, who stares at the smoke in horror. The Explorer Association radio frantically broadcasts confirmation of monsters attacking the city. The girls look at their phones, frightened by the casualty reports and urgent calls for backup. Towa turns to her allies and asks if anyone else besides Arya still doubts Haruhito. Towa Fuyutsuki gathers the other explorers and declares that from now on, they will rescue citizens and hunt monsters. She turns directly to Haruhito, asking point blank if he has any other suggestions regarding the situation. Arya Akine is left completely shocked and indignant. Seeing her boss ask for the opinion of a mere man, Haruhito tries to recall monster behavior during invasions, confirming he knows their patterns. He explains that monsters follow two patterns. They head toward densely populated areas and target sources of magic energy. Towa listens attentively and asks him to clarify why monsters prioritize hunting explorers. Haruhito states the reason is unknown, and all that is recorded is that victims are dragged into dungeons and never return. Towa analyzes the situation and concludes it would be best to plan for the worst-case scenario to figure out which location is in the most danger. The young man agrees with her logic and asserts that the monster's most likely target will be the Explorer Academy. At the school, several injured and frightened female students try to shelter amidst the rubble caused by the invasion. A young female warrior holds her sword, trying her absolute best to protect the helpless boys standing behind her. The dreadful winged demon angel Jamsiera Uza Enoch appears on sight, mockingly commenting that the people here are pathetic. He says he finds it unbearable and embarrassing to see weak men being protected by women in combat. The monster laughs at the boys' cowardice for hiding behind a girl in an attempt to survive. He asks if they feel no shame acting like that, causing the boys to cry and scream in total panic. Enoch calls the boys cowardly apes and challenges them to fight, but senses someone descending from the sky. Natsuki Natsukawa drops in unexpectedly, delivering a sword slash to the monster while telling him he talks too much. The students recognize the young woman and wonder anxiously if she got hurt during the strike. The guys cheer, thinking she defeated the monster, but the girl freezes upon noticing the enemy's reaction. In the blink of an eye, Enoch grabs Natsuki by the neck with effortless ease, leaving her completely out of breath. The demon casually praises the girl's fast reflexes while keeping her completely pinned in his grip. Enoch stares at her, noticing she possesses a massive natural talent for combat. Natsuki begins to choke in pain as she tries in vain to break free from the winged demon's crushing grip. The terrifying monster flashes a sinister grin, saying he took a liking to her, deciding she will bear his offspring. Coughing and crying in despair, Natsuki tries to resist, saying he must be joking with that proposal. Seeing their classmates' dire situation, the boys panic, begging for someone to save her immediately. Enoch shows off sharp teeth and maliciously states that he got a brilliant idea watching the boys' cowardice. The monster gives the guys a choice, asking if they will abandon their classmate there to run and save their own skins. He taunts them further, asking if any of them will have the guts to face him in direct combat. Still being choked, Natsuki groans in pain and cries, seeing that her life lies in the hands of those cowards. One of the guys freezes completely in terror, staring at the scene unable to react. The young man stammers in panic, saying desperately that there is no way they can fight. The guys cowardly abandon the girl. Running off while screaming apologies amidst their cries, they flee frantically, shouting that they do not want to get involved and that none of this is their fault. Enoch finds the guy's reaction hilarious, telling Natsuki that a talented woman like her is a waste on them. He slams her down hard onto the arena floor, making the girl cough heavily as she tries to recover her breath. Enoch notices his own wounds are already healing and sees that his opponent has not fully recovered. He praises the strike she delivered even while injured, leaving Natsuki in disbelief as she sees his wound close up. The girl lies on the ground completely helpless before the terrifying power of that dreadful winged demon. Enoch points his finger at her face, arrogantly commanding her to lick his fingers. The monster promises that if she obeys, he will start treating her as his official partner from then on. In tears, Natsuki asks if doing that will guarantee he spares her life and the lives of everyone else. The demon smiles maliciously, promising safety only for her, secretly thinking of her as a foolish female. Seeing her friend's sacrifice, Natsuki's classmate screams frantically, begging her not to go through with it. Her friend yells in panic for her to stop, but Natsuki cries and prepares for the worst, intending to help. The girl leans in with teary eyes and sticks her tongue out, about to lick the demon's finger. Enoch watches it all with a victorious smile, cynically praising her for being a good girl. Natsuki hesitates for a brief moment, slowly bringing her face closer while the monster waits eagerly. She keeps her tongue out, preparing for the final moment of that humiliation before the winged demon. Suddenly, Natsuki bites the monster's finger with all her force, shocking the demon, who did not see it coming. Enoch looks at his bleeding finger from the bite wound, angrily asking what the point of that was. Natsuki thinks of Haruhito, mentally declaring that she already has a boy she genuinely likes. With a beautiful smile on her face, she says with firm resolve that there is zero chance she would accept his offer. Enoch goes completely ballistic at the rejection, concentrating his destructive magic in the palm of his hand. The monster points his power straight at the girl, coldly telling her to perish once and for all. Natsuki closes her eyes, resigned to her grim fate, quietly saying goodbye to that world. Enoch unleashes a powerful dark spell at the ground toward the girl to eliminate her, without mercy. A massive, violent blast of purple magic erupts right where the demon had directed his attack. Out of nowhere, a voice commands the monster to stop as a strong energy shields against the explosion. To everyone's shock, Haruhito makes a heroic appearance, holding Natsuki in his arms to save her. Surrounded by his shadow energy, he looks at the monster with rage, asking what he thinks he is doing. Enoch recovers from the surprise, mockingly asking where that arrogant intruder suddenly came from. With a sharp, intimidating glow in his blue eye, Haruhito answers that he simply came from the shadows. The dreadful winged demon bursts out laughing, calling the young man a brash brat for talking back like that. Enoch fires a massive stream of fire and electricity at the boy, saying that much was obvious. A gigantic explosion of flames engulfs the area, and the students watch in panic, assuming it is over. Enoch observes the blaze with a smug smirk, casually remarking that it seems he took them out. He decides to turn around, thinking about taking out the rest of the humans or going to join his brother in the city. Suddenly, the monster grinds his teeth as he senses a massive magical presence emerging from behind the flames. Enoch's eyes open wide in utter shock as he realizes his target is still standing there, completely unscathed. Haruhito emerges holding Natsuki, untouched amidst the fire, and the demon asks confused how he is still alive. With a strong blue flame burning in his eye, the young man calmly replies that he simply blocked the attack. Enoch clicks his tongue impatiently, annoyed, stating that was pretty obvious from what he could see right there. Still, the demon gets excited by his durability, shouting that this is the kind of drive a man ought to have. With rocks floating around him, he calls out to Haruhito with great enthusiasm to kick off the battle. Enoch proposes a fight to the death between men, but Haruhito coldly asks him to hold on a second. The young man completely ignores the demon, affectionately asking Natsuki if she is able to walk on her own. Disregarding his opponent's rage, he excuses himself and begins walking away, gently carrying the girl. Furious at being ignored so humiliatingly, Enoch tries to strike him from behind, calling him an arrogant fool. The female classmate screams in panic, seeing the terrible blow rushing toward them while the demon laughs out loud. However, the demon's eyes go wide in total disbelief as he realizes something stopped his punch. Haruhito catches the blow easily behind his back, while continuing to walk without showing any strain. Multiple dark blue eyes manifest in the mist around him, and he commands the monster in a chilling voice to wait. The sheer magical pressure makes Enoch's eye bleed out of sheer terror, the monster barely able to breathe from fear. Hiding in the rubble, the students marvel at his power to withstand a punch that would flatten any explorer. One of them looks closer and starts noticing that the mysterious savior's face looks very familiar. The young guy's eyes widen, breaking into a cold sweat as he recognizes that the strong warrior is none other than Ayukawa Haruhito, pays no mind to the stares, and carries Natsuki safely over to her classmates, who run over worriedly. He places her down carefully on the ground, asking again if she can walk, and the girl confirms. Blushing Natsuki is utterly lost in her thoughts, asking herself if he really is the Haruhito she used to know. With a gentle, reassuring smile, the young man pats her head, saying it has been a while. Natsuki freezes completely, her cheeks turning bright red as she receives that affectionate gesture from him. She remembers fondly when she was saved by him in the past, her heart beating faster right then and there. Suddenly, one of the students screams Haruhito's name in anger, completely ruining the moment. Haruhito slowly shifts his gaze toward the arrogant guy who approaches yelling in anger. The boy calls him a failure and demands to know why he is acting tough, since men do not fight. The female students are confused, asking if he is really a man, and warning anxiously that the area is dangerous. One of them tells him to run away at once, but Haruhito just observes them with a calm, serene smile. The young man bows to the two injured female students, stating sincerely that he deeply respects the work they do. The two girls are extremely surprised and flushed by the unexpected praise they received from that man. Haruhito looks at the arrogant boy and points out that the girls fought and protected them to the end like true explorers. He thanks them sincerely for their efforts, leaving the arrogant guy completely speechless and annoyed. The hero asks the students to leave the rest to him, and they agree, stammering, quite flustered. Haruhito begins walking calmly toward the demon Enoch, who awaits him with arms crossed. The young man's gaze glows intensely amidst the darkness of his shadow magic as he readies himself to act. Enoch finds the human's conversation quite entertaining, laughingly asking the boy to state his name without uttering a single word. Haruhito simply raises his hand and points his index finger at the ground. With a simple motion, he slices the ground in half, creating a glowing line and leaving the demon surprised. The young man stares at the glowing fissure in the earth, calling Enoch's attention directly to that mark. With a deadly look, Haruhito coldly warns that if the demon crosses that line, he will eliminate him without hesitation. Enoch stomps firmly past the mark, screaming in rage that he has zero intention of following his orders. That instant, the young man rushes forward at extreme speed, landing a heavy hit that launches the monster into the air. Enoch is completely bewildered while floating in the air, unable to comprehend the speed of that attack. Haruhito appears right in front of him mid-air and warns with a serious look that his next strike will be straight to his gut. He readies a devastating punch, telling the monster to defend with everything he has if he wants to stay alive. After the impact, Haruhito tells the monster to defend himself properly. For once, Enoch drops to his knees in intense pain, complaining that his mana is draining away. Haruhito demands his opponent get up at once, letting him know they are just getting started. He demands the demon fight for real, otherwise this battle will be over in the blink of an eye. Enoch lets out an insane laugh, stating that was precisely what he wanted to hear. The demon charges furiously with his weapon, but the young man remains completely composed before him. Enoch makes a face of sheer shock, unable to process what is taking place. A violent clash occurs, kicking up massive dust and destruction all across the area. In the middle of the smoke, a loud laugh begins echoing across the battlefield. Enoch stomps hard on the destroyed ground, shouting that this is fantastic. He celebrates that this is better than he expected, amazed that there is someone on the surface capable of backing him into a corner. The girls watching from afar are stunned, asking themselves what that is. Enoch shouts for everyone to hear, revealing that his true name is Ramuziera Uza Enoch. The demon declares that he recognizes the young man as a true man and warrior. He invites his opponent to enjoy this moment in a true duel between men. Haruhito merely whispers about his shadow art, leaving Enoch confused for a second. Suddenly, Enoch's divine sword begins to completely shatter in midair. Enoch realizes in horror that not only his mana armor, but even his divine sword was broken. He realizes his wounds are not healing and feels as if his very mana is being sliced apart. The demon realizes that this is a magical skill. He finds it impossible, wondering how a mere human can use skills. Right then, the system announces that Haruhito's divine artifact has been activated. Enoch realizes that power completely exceeds human limits in combat. Sensing that crushing force, the demon realizes that nothing he does works against his opponent. Haruhito maintains a cold, locked glare, focused on ending this quickly. Enoch gets hit, commenting that Haruhito reminds him of someone due to such extreme violence. Bleeding heavily, the demon flashes a smile, saying the young man is truly terrifying. He praises the boy's strike as splendid before finally falling defeated. Enoch leaves one final mental warning for his younger brother that this human is extremely dangerous. The system confirms that the subjugation of the rank SS monster was completed successfully. The mana stone from the rank SS monster is also duly confirmed by the system right after. The system initiates the retrieval of the valuable item. Haruhito asks, confused, if the creature is really going to consume that, and the system alerts him that one more monster remains. Learning that Towa is the one closest, Haruhito calmly replies that he understands the situation. The young man in the white lab coat watches it all in shock, unable to believe what he just saw. He insists in panic that it is impossible for a man to fight in such an overwhelming manner. The guy shouts to everyone that this is Ayukawa, the same one who attacked him the other day, and ran off. He keeps screaming that Haruhito was always weird, calling him a monster for fighting like that, utterly desperate. He begs the explorer to finish Haruhito off, claiming he controls shadows and is not human. The guy keeps up his yelling while the girls observe the scene in complete silence. The guy notices the looks of disdain and angrily asks why nobody wants to listen to what he says. He repeats in rage that Haruhito is just a useless failure and a dangerous monster. While he keeps demanding they eliminate the boy, someone takes a firm step toward him. Natsuki appears out of nowhere and lands a sharp slap right across the noisy guy's face. The young man is left stunned, stammering as he watches Natsuki walk right past him. Natsuki takes a deep breath to try and calm down while walking with bright red cheeks. She slaps her own cheeks with determination to gather the courage to talk to the young man. Haruhito sees her approach and tries to ask worriedly about her injuries. However, she cuts him off by running over and giving him a tight hug from behind. Haruhito gets flustered by the surprise, but Natsuki simply whispers softly that everything is okay. Natsuki says tearfully that she is fine, precisely because he saved her. She hides her face and whispers once again that everything is okay. Haruhito turns quite embarrassed, stammering that everyone is looking at them. She fires back that she does not care, because anyone should express gratitude to the person who saved their life. The young man on the ground calls out to her shocked, asking why she chose him of all people. Upon hearing the system alert about another strong mana signature, Haruhito apologizes and steps away from her. Natsuki realizes he is already heading out and asks if he is off to save someone else again. She flashes a lovely smile and invites him to grab a meal together. Once he finally returns from the mission, Haruhito accepts the invitation awkwardly while the shadows urge him to move fast. Watching the young man depart, Natsuki quietly mutters to herself that he is insanely cool. In another part of the city, the leader Towa Fuyutsuki observes the destruction around her with concern. She stares at the demon standing right ahead and asks directly if he was the one who caused all of this. The enemy smirks mockingly and confirms the damage. Asking if there is a problem with that, Towa concludes it was foolish on her part to even ask a question like that to a monster. The monster lets out a gasp of surprise as he detects a sudden attack coming his way. She charges forward at extreme speed, unleashing a heavy blow with her giant sword. With a sharp glare, she coldly tells the enemy that he is truly unpleasant. The impact of the blow cuts the large block of rubble in half with immense ease. Right after the attack, she looks around, wondering if there are still any survivors at the location. Suddenly, she hears a child's desperate crying echoing nearby. Without wasting a second, the young woman runs as fast as she can toward the sound of the crying. Towa finds a little girl weeping heavily in the rain next to a small white dog lying on the ground. The girl sobs frantically, not knowing what to do to help her little companion. With eyes filled with tears, she notices someone has just arrived to help her. Towa quickly kneels down to the girl's height with a gentle expression. The little girl is a bit confused by the affectionate approach of that warrior. Towa extends her arms warmly to comfort the frightened child. She wraps her in a warm hug and praises the girl for managing to survive all of that. Towa consoles the little one, saying it must have been scary, and apologizes for being late. Feeling safe, the little girl breaks down crying even harder while clinging to her savior. Towa simply remains silent, offering all the support the girl needs at that moment. The girl sobs, saying her dog named Leo gave his all to protect her. She recounts crying that the monster kicked the small animal and he completely stopped moving. Towa smiles tenderly, commenting that she has a wonderful and very brave family. She praises the dog as man's best friend and begins channeling her healing magic into him. Thanks to Towa's healing spell, the small dog finally opens his eyes slowly. The little girl calls his name, and the pet responds with a happy bark back. She shouts her companion's name overjoyed while he licks her face in the rain. Towa takes advantage of the dog's recovery to ask affectionately where the girl's parents are. The girl points to the couple lying just ahead on the wet asphalt approaching. Towa realizes with concern that the two citizens are barely able to breathe. She extends her glowing hands and firmly states that it is not yet their time to go. She concentrates a large amount of vital energy to stabilize the injured couple's health. The parents finally begin to wake up, and the little girl happily runs into their arms. Other survivors and explorers arriving at the scene recognize Towa and celebrate her assistance. Arya runs toward the leader, thanking her immensely for all the support provided there. Towa tells her not to worry about that and orders her to focus first on civilian safety. Suddenly, her eyes widen as she senses a terrible danger approaching rapidly. She tries to warn the group hastily about the incoming threat from above. Seeing the energy strike falling from the sky, Towa yells with all her might for everyone to duck. A powerful blast of magical water is fired at Towa in an attempt to hit her with high agility. She uses her giant sword to firmly block the water attack. Towa makes a swift move and manages to split that entire massive water wave in half. The winged demon gets a kick out of the scene, praising her great reaction to the strike. He laughingly confesses he lowered his guard and did not expect to get cornered like that by her. Towa asserts seriously that she is certain she cut him, but the monster merely praises her strike. She orders the others to remain hidden, warning that the enemy's body is made of liquid. The monster ignores her words and takes the chance to compliment Towa's beauty with a smug grin. He rushes forward, shouting that he wants to get a much closer look at her face. Towa dodges swiftly as several pillars of magical water erupt from the ground around her. She plants her feet on the broken ground to prepare for the fight's next move. With an impressive leap, the warrior launches herself straight at the opponent's water stream. With a sharp gaze, she sternly warns that she came over specifically to show him her face. She delivers a fast and powerful sequence of colorful slashes that cut through all the magical water. One of the female explorers watching the fight celebrates, surprised that she pulled off the feat in a flash. However, Towa shouts impatiently, telling those foolish girls to stay hidden so as not to be in danger. She warns that she has not managed to defeat the opponent yet, as his head reappears right beside her. The monster flashes a terrifying smile right near her face, confirming she is right about that. The demon delivers a swift blow to the girl, causing a massive splash of blue liquid to burst forth. Towa's eyes open wide, completely frozen as she takes the impact of that sudden attack. The enemy mocks her, saying it is a shame she was unable to protect the little girl. He points at the sheltered people, warning that he will now hunt and eliminate all those apes over there. Overcome by intense rage, the young woman grinds her teeth, calling him a wretched scoundrel in anger. The demon smiles, commenting that she is the soft-hearted type, despite having that fierce expression. He finds that reaction adorable, deciding to activate his heavenly water skill expansion. The villain states that this is a test, wondering if she will really be able to protect those humans. Gripping her sword tightly, she mutters with utter disdain that he is nothing more than garbage. At that moment, the system announces that the release of her magic power restriction has been activated with her power unleashed. The young woman disgustedly declares that this is precisely why she hates men. She wields her weapon with determination, preparing to unleash an ultimate attack with everything she has. Towa executes a colossal flying slash that glows in multiple colors, tearing straight through the air. The demon is sliced in half by the attack, but merely laughs out loud, finding that flying slash incredible. He remarks that there was no way to dodge that strike, opting to activate his heavenly water once more. A gigantic wave of magical water crashes onto the battlefield with full force, destroying everything. Towa manages to evade the water's impact, launching herself into the air with her sword ready to strike. However, the demon reappears upside down right beside her with a sadistic smile on his face. Seeing the imminent danger, the little girl screams frantically for the warrior to be extremely careful. The monster lets out a playful chuckle, while focusing his power on the tip of his index finger. He fires an acid blast to dissolve her, ignoring the frantic screams telling him to stop. Towa uses her own body to shield the little girl, asking in pain if the little one got hurt. The child screams in pure panic, seeing the terrible acid burns on her savior's back. The villain complains that his acidic water was less effective than he thought, as a normal person would have melted. He finds the high quality of Towa's magic energy interesting for managing to resist the severe effect, ignoring the extreme pain. The warrior turns around furious, telling her opponent to shut his mouth once and for all. She manages to decapitate the demon with a single strike, but the monster just mocks her, saying that will not work. He chuckles, explaining that only a skill can negate another, highlighting that mere humans are incapable of using skills. Towa is quite intrigued by that piece of information, wondering what a skill actually is. The villain flashes a sick smile, cheerfully inviting her to continue that game of life or death. He asks mockingly whether he will take out the apes first, or if she will manage to eliminate him before that feeling immense pain from her open wounds. Toa lets out a heavy groan and charges at him once again. The demon notices the other humans fled, commenting that it seems he lost that game. With a malicious look, he decides to propose something new to her. He says laughingly that it was only the game he lost, while Toa leans on her sword, totally spent. She clicks her tongue, frustrated over spending way too much magical energy to block his acidic water. The enemy compliments her features again, saying Toa's beauty is worthy of his divine race. The demon announces he has made a very important decision regarding her. With a massive grin on his face, he simply proposes marriage to her right on the spot. He claims that from that moment on, he will fill her mind with his magical water. The monster tells her not to worry, because soon enough she will genuinely start to love him. While he was rambling about awakening her skill, a punch comes out of nowhere. Hitting him square on, the demon lets out a groan of pain as he takes the heavy blow right on his cheek. He just lets out a silly laugh, even with his face distorted by the physical strike. Toa watches the scene surprised that he is still standing, commenting with disgust that it is repulsive. The prota notes that it is over and that he can no longer sense any magic energy coming from the opponent. The monster notices he is starting to bleed and lose a lot of fluid from the impact. He analyzes his own physical state, noting he suffered multiple fractures from that single blow. A memory from the past surfaces of when Haruhito told her to call his name whenever she was in danger. In the memory, he promised he would come save her, but the little girl just called him silly back then. The demon stares at Toa, commenting he ended up forgetting to ask what her name was. She answers with disdain that she only lets people she likes call her by her actual name. The enemy smiles confidently, saying he will ask again as soon as he succeeds in making her his. Suddenly, an explosion of purple energy hits the monster by surprise, leaving him bewildered. The system detects the rank SS monster and releases the dark power of the triple S rank hero. The demon lets out a gasp of surprise. Seeing the young man appear before him with a devastating strike, Haruhito lands an incredibly heavy punch right on the enemy's face, using his shadow energy. The demon slides backward, startled by the extreme speed, asking himself who that intruder could be. However, he quickly boasts that it is useless to try fighting him without using magical skills. Right after, he spits out a large amount of blue fluid from his mouth, feeling the damage. The monster is completely horrified upon realizing he is actually taking physical damage from that strike. Haruhito walks calmly toward him, asking ironically what he had said about skills. The enemy lets out a nervous chuckle, concluding in surprise that humanity also possesses a skill user. The demon stares at the boy wrapped in shadows, identifying him as the ultimate peak of combat and a master of skills. Haruhito then turns casually to Toa, greeting her by calling her rank 1. He looks at her sternly, asking if she still has enough strength left to stay in the fight. Toa lets out a light sigh, grumbling that the young man really never stops talking for a single second. Even so, she begins wielding her great sword once more with renewed determination. Pleased with the response, Haruhito says it is good to hear that, and the two prepare to fight side by side. Meanwhile, Arya alerts the other girls that their leader Toa is confronting an unknown monster downtown. With a serious tone, she asks the group if everyone there knows very well what their job is. Itsuki gives a confident smile, responding playfully by calling her classmate Four Eyes. The others agree enthusiastically to clear the area before heading over to back up their boss in battle. Suddenly, Arya turns around as she senses an immense magical presence heading straight for the group. An imposing old demon appears seated atop a war tank, asking if they have finished their conversation. With a serene look, the elder decides to make a direct proposal to the young explorers. He asks politely if they would agree to accompany him to his domain without starting a fight. Facing their refusal, the elder raises his battle staff, commenting on how energetic the young women are. The young demon beside him alerts her grandfather that they need to hurry, leaving the elder quite curious. She reveals that the force that defeated Jamsiera has just joined with another very strong and beautiful energy. Sakura looks at her grandfather with a worried expression, confessing that they risk losing their lives if they stay there. Meanwhile, Towa and Haruhito join forces, unleashing combined attacks against the dreadful water monster. The water demon prepares to strike again, channeling more of his fluid magic around himself. Haruhito steps forward, unleashing his shadow art, colliding with extreme force against the enemy's attack. The monster screams in pain upon being hit square on and blasted backward by the shadow power. He realizes in horror that his liquefaction ability is simply not working against the young man. The monster understands in panic that Haruhito's strikes are capable of taking his very life. Towa seizes the opening and delivers another quick slash, taunting him about the change in his expression. The enemy grinds his teeth annoyed, unable to process how that near-dead girl is still capable of attacking him. He notices in shock that Towa's movements are getting faster and more precise in battle. He tries to calm down, thinking her attacks do not matter since he can still try to negate them. Haruhito drops in unexpectedly above him, asking ironically if this was really the right time to look away. The monster spits blood, complaining indignantly that this had to be some bad joke. Towa catches onto the situation, remarking that Haruhito's physical attacks can genuinely harm the opponent. Haruhito confirms it, and Towa says decisively that she does not need explanations because she trusts him completely. Haruhito is confused internally, asking himself why she trusts him so blindly and unconditionally. The demon resurfaces enraged, asking if they have time to chat while casting a massive surge of water. He celebrates landing a direct hit with his strongest spell, guaranteeing that any human would melt in seconds there. However, the young man activates his massive shadow barrier, completely blocking the entire enemy assault. The monster stares at the intact barrier in total shock, stammering as he asks who he really is. The villain tries to keep his cool mentally, planning to shift his focus back onto the weaker humans in the area. As the demon works out his exit strategy, Haruhito firmly grips the hilt of his own sword with his eye glowing brightly. He signals an attack and asks if the opponent is indeed Sakiera. The monster lets out a terrified gasp upon hearing his own name come out of that human's mouth. Before he can react, the enemy's body is sliced brutally by a line of purple energy. The demon gazes at the deep cut on his chest, completely horrified, unable to tell when the strike was delivered. Haruhito details that the ability to manipulate non-existent water requires a setup window. The enemy stares at the young man, utterly haunted, asking himself at what point he was sliced so rapidly he begins to dissolve completely onto the asphalt, questioning how all of this was even possible. While the demon spiraled in despair within his thoughts, the system asks Haruhito if he remembers that entity. Haruhito answers mentally that he does, and that all past memories are finally returning. He recalls that this monster possessed the power to wipe out part of the global population with colossal floods. It was Sakiera, one of the 7 calamities and one of the final opponents who took his life in his previous timeline. Even so, the young man notes that the current appearance of that monster is quite different from what he remembered. Towa shouts for him to keep up the pressure, and the young man promptly replies that he copy that. The demon roars furiously, calling them inferior creatures and warning them not to get full of themselves. Suddenly, his eyes open wide as he realizes something completely unexpected just happened there. Towa and Haruhito also glance back, startled, sensing a massive, brand new magical presence. A mysterious voice resonates across the area, softly praising the impressive strength shown by the young warriors. Towa confronts the new threat in deep anger, demanding to know what was done to her subordinates. The old demon points to the female students trapped inside a floating crystal, calmly saying not to worry since they are not dead. The young female demon looks at her weakened ally, while he asks in surprise about the presence of the professor and Ciel there. The elder announces he came to retrieve him under direct orders from the king, and that this invasion has regrettably come to an end. A massive stone portal opens in the sky right before everyone. Confirming the demon's words, Towa shouts in rage at the situation, demanding answers on what they plan to do. The old demon chuckles, admitting they were unprepared, and lets them know they will take the captive girls as spoils of war. He says goodbye with a mocking tone, stating he is certain they will all meet again very soon. However, Haruhito quickly extends his hand, refusing to let them escape like that. The young man dashes forward toward the portal entrance, releasing more of his dark energy claws. With a fierce glow in his eyes, he angrily warns that he won't let them escape under any circumstances. The massive stone portal remains open in the sky, emitting a powerful, brilliant light. Haruhito calmly walks toward the portal as a purple aura surges around him. He glares at the crystal holding the captured girls and warns that there is no way he will let them get away. Annoyed by those monsters, he decides to unleash his powerful shadow art technique. Realizing the young man's incoming assault, the demons are stunned by what is about to happen. The system issues an urgent warning stating that the enemy's total combat power far exceeds theirs. The system recommends an immediate tactical retreat, but Haruhito notes that his opponent is vastly different from what he remembered. In reality, the entity standing before him is the terrifying monster known as the Underworld King. The chilling skeletal king sits imposing on his throne. Driven by dark memories of his past, Haruhito furiously demands that they return the girls. He is haunted by the painful memories of his previous life. The young man recalls when the entire world was devastated and invaded by terrifying creatures. He remembers how people lost everything they had overnight. That harsh reality forced upon him caused his darkest memories to cry out for revenge. Driven by the desire to destroy everything, the young man demands the return of everything that was taken from him. Meanwhile, the enemies begin to realize the true identity of the one standing before them. The young demon is shocked to realize that this young man was the one who defeated Jamsiera. He asks in disbelief if his brother was truly defeated, and the elder solemnly confirms the news. The old demon lets out a sigh, deeply lamenting the troubling situation. While the enemy assesses him as a tough opponent, the system keeps ordering Haruhito to fall back. The mysterious voice frantically says that it never wants to lose its explorer ever again. It begs him to retreat, confessing that it doesn't want to be left alone in the dark anymore. Suddenly, the voice calls out for Prometheus, leaving the young man confused about being called an explorer. Haruhito adjusts his suit with a confident smirk and says that the enemy is the only one who can give him answers. The young man remains silent for a moment, gathering all his energy for combat. A strange shadow creature begins to emerge rapidly from his back. The system remarks that he is being very foolish to waste his precious second life like this. He offers a sarcastic apology with a smirk, while the voice laments how humans usually are. With that, the main system officially initiates combat mode to support the young man. A massive blue eye opens within the shadow energy as the system speaks. Haruhito's name with its power fully activated, the system announces that the exploration has successfully resumed. The winged enemies fire a barrage of arrows made of light directly at the young man. Haruhito uses his massive shadow tails to knock away every single projectile with extreme ease. The young demon spits blood in shock and furiously asks what on earth the young man really is. Desperate, the villain orders him not to move and threatens to destroy the crystal holding the hostage girls. Before he can even react, Haruhito appears right in front of him and strikes him violently with his shadows. The demon retreats, injured, and wonders in frustration why this is happening. He panics as he notices that his body simply isn't regenerating from the wound. As the opponent falls into despair, the shadow tails quickly wrap around the large blue crystal. The system confirms that the 4 S-rank explorers have been properly secured and saved with immense physical effort. Haruhito throws the giant crystal far away with the help of his tails. The massive blue crystal rockets through the stone portal at extreme speed, escaping the danger zone. The system officially confirms that the young explorers have been safely evacuated from the battle area with their safety secured. The system announces that it is time to advance against the remaining enemies. He prepares to launch a direct assault against the powerful army of Underworld King Ita. The winged soldiers charge forward at high speed, wielding their combat spears. Haruhito dodges with agility and slices the opponents in half using his purple shadow claws. Suddenly, the old demon strikes from above, driving a violent spear attack toward the young man's shadows. He offers a sarcastic compliment, remarking that the young man moves impressively well for his age. Haruhito fires back with a taunt, saying the elder moves shockingly well for an old guy too. The old demon attacks with full force, wielding his large staff against Haruhito's shadows. The two trade fierce blows in midair in an extremely balanced and fast-paced clash. The elder raises his staff, calling all his winged warriors to gather close to him. The warriors quickly assemble in the air, forming a defensive barrier around their leader. Haruhito seizes the opportunity to unleash another powerful strike with his shadow art. The giant slashes of purple energy crash directly into the stone ground with a massive boom. The young man pushes forward with determination, using his shadow tails to gain even more momentum. He propels himself rapidly ahead, trying to reach his true target in the area. Haruhito appears right before the terrifying Underworld King,
staring him down with a serious and fearless look. With a confident smile and his eye glowing blue, the young man shows he is ready to fight. He greets the scary skeletal king in a completely relaxed and teasing tone. Haruhito sarcastically says it is great to meet him and prepares to deliver his next attack. The skeletal king remains in absolute silence and simply raises his glowing index finger. A massive beam of golden light is suddenly fired,
forcing the young man to leap back immediately. Haruhito grinds his teeth as he feels the immense pressure from the devastating attack he barely dodged. The enemy lets out a loud laugh as Haruhito is blown backward by the force of the impact. The terrible blow completely destroys the surrounding stone structures, kicking up a thick cloud of dust. The Underworld King observes the destruction caused, maintaining his usual cold, skeletal expression. the king's skull mask begins to crack, revealing a surprising human face underneath. Meanwhile, Haruhito tumbles down from above, coughing up blood due to the severe injury he sustained. The imposing king slowly approaches the fallen young man and reaches out his hand to finish the job. He lets out a soft, triumphant sigh, certain that the battle has finally ended in his favor. Suddenly, Towa reappears glowing intensely and steps through the portal wielding her great sword. She screams Haruhito's name in desperation upon seeing the condition her friend is in on the ground. Towa delivers an extremely powerful slash, colliding head-on against the king's giant colored hand. The young man is gently wrapped in a massive colored hand that suddenly appears to rescue him. She firmly declares that they are going back home right now and pulls him away from danger. The underworld king watches the youths escape in silence, making no attempt to stop their retreat. He glares at them with his single eye revealed through the crack in his shattered skeletal mask. As the portal closes completely, the skeletal king thoughtfully utters Haruhito's name elsewhere. Haruhito slowly begins to regain consciousness as he hears someone calling his name. Towa appears crying heavily over him, relieved to see that her friend has finally woken up. The young man is completely bewildered. Not quite understanding what is happening at that moment, Towa continues to stare at him in total silence, tears streaming down her flushed face. Suddenly, she collapses crying onto his chest, catching the young man completely off guard. Towa celebrates through her sobs that he is alive, while Haruhito tries to figure out what their situation is. Towa remembers the other girls and points, assuring him that all of them are already completely fine. They appear lying on the ground just ahead. Resting safely after passing through the portal, Haruhito asks if they are okay, and Towa confirms they are, explaining that they just passed out. He smiles in relief and offers his thanks, but Towa solemnly reveals that he was the only one who wasn't breathing. She cries as she confesses that he wouldn't respond to her voice and that his heart had stopped beating. The young man is confused, but the system confirms that its self-repair technique was completed just moments ago. He realizes it is true when he notices he feels no pain and has no injuries anywhere on his body. At that, Towa gives an annoyed headbutt to Haruhito's chest, making the young man let out a groan of pain. Crying heavily, she asks in hurt why he never thinks of himself first. She keeps complaining that his heart had stopped and asks why he hurt himself so badly for them. Haruhito realizes she is blaming herself, remembering that in this world women are supposed to protect men. He understands that Towa carries a strong sense of responsibility and decides to try to calm her down. He softly tells her not to worry, but she snaps back in frustration, reminding him that he nearly passed away right there with a firm and determined look. The young man seriously declares that he is a true explorer. Towa looks at the young man in complete shock as she hears him say that he will simply pass away when his time comes. The system is also caught off guard and lets out an amazed exclamation at the young man's sudden declaration. Haruhito explains that his one and only best friend would definitely do the exact same thing for him. He recalls his past at the beach, and when he promised that he would meet her again one day, the young man confesses with a smile that he doesn't want that childhood friend to feel disappointed in him. He thinks to himself that he managed to be very gentle in comforting her and making sure she knew it wasn't her fault. Towa asks if he remembers that friend's name, and Haruhito answers that she never wanted to tell him. She mutters thoughtfully about him risking his life over a silly promise with someone whose name he doesn't even know. Haruhito calmly agrees, admitting that it might indeed seem like something very silly to outsiders. She lightly grinds her teeth upon hearing him say that it would only seem foolish to someone on the outside. The young man smiles and assures her that, to him, it is an extremely precious memory of his life. He reveals that even when he was picked on by people around him back in his school days, he was able to find the strength to keep moving forward solely because of that sweet memory. With that, Haruhito wraps up gently, saying it is totally fine if she doesn't understand. Suddenly, Towa hugs him with incredible force, leaving the young man utterly shocked and flustered. She asks if he knows why that friend didn't tell him her name, leaving the young man stammering in confusion. Towa explains that the girl was terrified his attitude toward her would change if she revealed her name. She then asks, looking straight into his eyes, if he truly wants to know the name of that precious friend with tears streaming down her heavily blushing face. She calls out loud for Haruhito, Ayukawa. Haruhito widens his eyes in complete shock and asks in confusion for her to hold on just a second. She whispers with her face pressed right up against his, complaining bashfully that he is too close. However, their conversation is interrupted when Satsuki lets out a loud yawn as she wakes from her sleep. Satsuki stretches, remarking that she slept well, and asks curiously what happened to the underworld king. Arya wakes up as well, grumbling at the noise and complaining that Satsuki's voice is way too loud. She notices Haruhito's presence near Toa and attempts to politely thank him for the rescue. Suddenly, Arya glares at the two with a serious look and asks if they aren't standing a bit too close. The girls stare at the scene suspiciously. While Toa tries to stammer out that it isn't what it looks like, Satsuki and Arya open their eyes wide in absolute shock upon noticing their leader's embarrassed reaction. Arya thinks to herself how cute Toa looks while blushing, but quickly starts to worry about the situation. She mentally admits that she is starting to get a terribly bad feeling about all of this. Meanwhile, somewhere far away inside a massive stone structure, the sunlight shines through. A mysterious woman observes Toa through a magical rift and comments on her expression. She gives a light, playful smirk, saying that the leader looks just like a young girl in love. Next, she glares at Haruhito through the magical viewer and notes that he really has come a very long way. The mysterious young woman smiles teasingly and softly whispers, calling the young man her hubby. If you want the next part, like and comment.